Well, hello. Welcome to the Pioneers Show, the show where we talk with innovators, makers, entrepreneurs, basically people who are blazing their own trails and creating their own lives so that we all can learn about how to work on our own lives. I know this is a repetition, but that's it. This is episode 2, and I'm your host, André Albuquerque. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at It's DeAndre, as well as the show at Pioneers Show, PioneersShow. Pioneers Show on Instagram as well. With us today, we have Lasha Antadze. He's a Georgian blockchain entrepreneur, and if you don't know what's blockchain, stick around. If you love blockchain, you'll love this conversation, and if you don't, you'll also love because I can guarantee you that there's much to learn with this podcast. We go through Lasha's experience. I mean, the guy has a crazy story with the Ukrainian government. He has a great experience and he has great knowledge, not only on the blockchain and cryptocurrency space, but also he has some different ideologies, probably even onto the technology and political overview of the world. So without any further ado, let's jump into this great conversation with Lasha Antadze. So welcome to the Pioneer Show, Lasha. How are you, man?
I'm fine. How are you? Thank you.
Always good. Thank you so much for taking the invitation, kind of a forced invitation, if we must say. Thank you very much for being here. It's a great pleasure and honor that I have you here on the Pioneer Show. So, Lasha.
It was not a forced invitation. I really love doing podcasts and talking about especially blockchains and what I do. It was just the timing that did not align.
It's a forced interview now. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, man.
I'm the founder and CEO of company Shelf Network, which is basically a world's first distributed auctioning network, so to say. That is currently bootstrapping its use case on used car auctions, and we allow, to be simple and precise, we allow sellers to auction the same vehicle at the same time at multiple marketplaces synchronously.
Okay, for people who don't understand a single thing that you just said, can we simplify that? So imagine, how can you explain it to someone who's not in the blockchain area? What do you do?
I didn't mention blockchain at all.
I know.
Because
distributed, okay, you're right.
So basically what we do, I'm cutting you, but what we do, like, we connect auctioning marketplaces, like I know many car auctioning marketplaces, with each other, peer-to-peer. And we're using blockchain as a technology, as a protocol to connect them. And then once you got them connected, here you got the network.
Okay.
And then you go to the sellers, and if you're selling your car, right? Now, if you upload your car in auction, you limit it to one single marketplace. But if those marketplaces are united using our blockchain solution, then you can just upload your car at one place, but run and monitor same auction of the same car at multiple marketplaces. And this, in a way, allows you to reach more buyers directly, to be present at multiple places in multiple countries. And especially it works with cars because there's a huge demand and cross-border sales already that exist. We're just streamlining and automizing and enhancing that process through the technology.
Very interesting. And is it, so can I have a car in Portugal and sell it right now? Is it a customer side? Is it business to business side? Where are you acting?
Currently, it's more business side. So we allow only so-called corporate sellers, such as insurances and leasing companies, to list their vehicles and sell them. But in the future, of course, we're going to open up for general public, and it's going to be a universal permissionless chain to use.
Okay. And where are you right now, not only in terms of the company, but in which markets are you on?
Currently, we're live with our first channel. It's between Lithuania and Georgia. We open up from Georgia to Ukraine, and we be adding suppliers from the Germany, as we now signed several clients and suppliers. And we're looking actually on the import-export statistics, so it's not like randomized hookup of marketplaces and suppliers. We do really go into depths and research where is the demand and what type of cars are requested by average users and buyers, and based on that and based on those flow, we pull up our network and sales channels.
So basically you choose a market based on statistics and not just by throwing names in the air? Where do you get these kinds of data? Is it public data? Do you have to pay?
It is public data actually. You can see the import export statistics between countries on the United Nations Contrade's website, or you can request from the interior ministers or border controls this type of data, what type of cars have been, or if there are some annual some reports as well available which go into kind of deep statistical knowledge of what color or what year of the car
really
was imported. Yeah.
Okay, and just in case, I assume most people don't understand this, but why is cross-border, cross-platform important? So why would a reseller, an insurance company, for example, would like to sell in Germany or in Lithuania, would like to sell or open my bids for Georgia?
Yeah, because it's a nature of unfair world we have in a way, because all the used cars, mostly from Western Europe, the easy and more kind of regulatory easy to sell in Eastern Europe because the demand is high. On the other hand, for the Eastern Europeans, it's more affordable to buy used cars than to be able to buy the new cars. So it is a kind of a demand existing natural.
Okay, there's a lot of demand in the eastern side of Europe, and on the western side there's the supply.
Because like the average Western European can lease off the car and return it in 2 years and get a new model. And in Eastern Europe, that's not the case. You can't really buy a new car and get in a new car. It costs a lot. So,
but it's not businesses that buy those secondhand cars.
Even the businesses
really
prefer to buy, like taxi companies or renting companies, or even for the fleets, they prefer to buy used cars because the price is huge. There's a huge difference between a new car's price and a used car.
Okay. Then let's take a little step back. Where are you from, by the way?
I'm originally from Georgia.
So you're from Georgia, and how did you get into blockchain or tech? Let's start from there. How did you get into tech?
Oh, I don't know. My life has been pretty various and contrastual, I would say, because I didn't really get into blockchain because of Bitcoin or something. I first somehow, I don't know, don't ask me questions, let's go by. Somehow I ended up in a semi-political movement in Ukraine after the revolution. So basically I was, that was the strange part of my life, like 2-3 years of my life, when I was leading some reforms to change the most corrupt country and its establishment. And basically I was doing on the e-governance side. So I was looking at the processes that the government provides, starting from property registration to passport issuance to identity management or some land management stuff. So everything that government provides you as a service.
As a digital service, you were in the trenches. Is that it?
Yeah, it should be digital if we believe in computers, etc. But it's, of course, now it's manual and like most bureaucratic you can imagine. Even in Germany, it's not something that governments are good establishment to have a high tech.
Wait. How did you get into Ukraine? Like, you don't have to be a lot of that deep thinking if it's something that you're not entirely comfortable. But how did you go from Georgia to Ukraine in not only Ukraine but work within and with the Ukrainian government?
I mean, yes, I've heard many. I've had many rumors around. Some think that I'm kind of affiliated with the oligarchs and have been like, I don't know, helping them out. Some think that I'm kind of affiliated with a political party or something, or my relatives. There's like many things people might think, but the truth was that nothing. As a young, enthusiastic guy, I just joined a random project without any pay. It was just a voluntary work I was doing in terms of research of a certain. It was in Georgia basically, and then those people who I volunteered for somehow saw potential in me, I would guess, and they just invited me for 4 weeks to look around and see what could I do and help in Ukraine, as it was like post-revolutionary period, and somehow I stayed there for 3 years and worked my life.
And what's the biggest project you worked with the Ukrainian government, or the biggest?
Yeah, I mean, the one that I'm kind of proud of in a way is the project I work with. It's like building a McDonald's like building for providing governmental services. So idea is that you don't have to stand in line, you don't have to wait like hundreds of hours of before you get your paper, but the entire processes should be optimized in this way that you have to only spend 15 minutes within this entity. And you basically what you do is you just get all your governmental services in one place and provide it as a one-stop shop. That was like the biggest project that actually I enjoyed a lot, because I've optimized around 135 public services to have this kind of flow, so users and public would interact as if they were in a McDonald's space. And it still works, and I'm kind of it's cool to drive around and see something that has been accomplished and you participated in.
Interesting. And okay, so you're working for the Ukrainian government. You create the McDonald's for public services.
Yeah. And then there was one project, so to say, side project that was like not prioritized, but it was like auctioning. So basically,
but auctioning like eBay, or auctioning?
No, like governmental auctions for asset management, you would say, because every government, if it wants to sell or privatize something, they need to auction. That's a kind of regulatory framework, right? And the problem with this current schemes of auctioning is that it's either manual, so in a closed rooms, and you always know who the winner is, and that's a kind of number one corrupt gateway, and that's where the money flows and ease, and everyone is interested to grab a piece out of it. So yeah, and the solution that exists in current schemes, it's an online open trade auctions. But then you understand that governments, like in most cases, they're not really good service providers. So you don't have you seen like any governmental selling land or something that you kind of brought many investors around? And so yeah, they're really bad, especially at marketing. So the idea was to give the same assets to private marketplaces who would serve as the agents around, and they would bring more buyers. They could like expand the sales of geography and coverage and remarketing, and you would have like this transparent open competition for who's able to buy. Not to end up, then that's a kind of a solution not to end up with the Russian privatization of early 90s. So, yeah, that was the case. But then you understand that you can't really trust governments if they are the owners of the database. If they manage the process, they can really kind of misuse it, so to say. And they can just forge the results, or they would not allow someone to participate, and still you would end up with the huge corruption. And that the idea was to get rid of the centralized database as well, and allow those private entities to interact peer-to-peer without any central middleman or the arbiter who would say who the highest bidder was. And that's how we found blockchain, and that's how I started my blockchain career. So it was not my first kind of project it was the decentralized auction.
But did you build the auctioning, I assume, software platform?
Yeah, it's a basically a protocol that we built back then. It was 2015. There was like a different world for blockchain. There was different world.
Different world altogether.
Yeah, it was altogether different world. So and we were like really cool, like young guys having a pilot project with the government of Ukraine on blockchain. That was like, what was blockchain? Nobody knew. But it really bootstrapped the community that is now in Ukraine, and people who really understand how this industry works, and many professionals for whom this entire industry became kind of daily lifestyle.
Okay, so basically back in 2015, according to what we are seeing today, or at least in the last 7 months maybe, with the craze of the rise of Bitcoin, the Ethereum, the Ripples, and all the cryptocurrencies that getting a lot of attention from JP Morgan to you name it. You were a hipster in the blockchain area. So you were in blockchain before blockchain was cool.
No, I was not. I was a guy that believed that, I don't know, $500 Bitcoin was the maximum it could get, or $15 Ethereum was the top. So yeah.
So I guess you were wrong here.
Yeah, of course. I wish I was correct back then and knew at least the scale of how quickly it would grow. But I do believe in technologies. That was the case. I did see the value of it. Not in terms of like the currency or the value, or I'm gonna invest and get rich 100 years, 10 years after. Not in that way, because I thought like it was too late. I don't know why. I always thought that it was too late. But I liked itself the protocol approach. I liked the governance model it has introduced, and as I told you, it was like a perfect tool to take the government down and out of the processes. And then I had, as I told you, I had the direct interaction with the governmental services, so I knew like every moment of it, and I still know what the problem were, how the documents move around, how many people interfere with the process. I had like mapped the entire things out, and when I got introduced to the blockchain, that was like, wow, man, we can do everything without government even having a power to, or spending money on this. And this was what I liked about blockchain, that it changes the way of especially governmental responsibilities that we kind of given them and take for granted.
Okay, for some people who might not be as well versed, and this might be a very stupid ask, but when people say protocol, protocol is basically a layer on top of which things are built. Is that it?
No, protocol is like a cable, you would say. Protocol is like cable connecting one device to another, and
through a protocol.
Yeah. So it's like a channel cable that you connect, and protocol is just standardizes what the type of data or the process that those two entities you want to interact with.
So, okay, let's assume, for example, the Bitcoin blockchain.
Yeah.
It's built on top of a specific protocol?
Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin blockchain is a protocol that connects these miners with each other, so they exchange all those transactions and pools and blocks among themselves.
Okay, and does Shelf Network have any tokens?
No.
And tokens are...
tokens are just written thing on the ledger. It's just writing. So many Bitcoins exist, so many stuff.
But okay, let me see. A token is a mode of rewarding the miners, the one that making sure that the information is safe, or is intact and untouched. And you guys don't have a token?
No.
Is there a reason for it? Is it because you don't believe in the tokenization of blockchain? Is it because there's too much hype? What's the reason?
No, I believe in kind of tokenization, and for the Bitcoin, it's a perfect reward mechanism, right? Bitcoin is not about technology. It's about how you brought those technology into a kind of a ecosystem that is self-sustainable, decentralized, and can govern itself without central intermediary. That's all about the Bitcoin and blockchains. But to sustain that infrastructure, right, the decentralized one, you need many counterparts, and they have expenses, right? So you need some kind of a reward mechanism that will motivate them to sustain those servers around, right? Like miners. And that's why you got this generation of new Bitcoins, or you got commissions on which they're gonna continue to have interest into operating. But in our case, if your infrastructure is built between marketplaces who are on the service side for the client, right? They already have the income and reward mechanism out of the commissions, out of the sales, out of providing services to their clients. So they don't need a kind of a imaginary new token worth nothing to be given in terms of
makes sense.
Sustaining the system. They already have that.
So, and in terms of building Shelf network so far, what has been the hardest thing that you've had to overcome? or to build or to
Not
know?
doing ICO. That's the hardest thing. I mean, not doing an ICO, it's a kind of temptation, right? Especially when you started in 2015, when I was everything just getting started, right? No ICO term existed. It was token distribution, as we used to call it. And then we were like, we actually got rid of the internal token, not because we straight away understood that it's not something that will be useful, or well, we don't need a native token, but we got rid because we had a governmental project. And first thing I thought was, okay, and explaining to government to buy some tokens on an exchange would be pretty hard. So we got rid of the token back then due to that reason. But over when seeing all these new startups and kind of models of ecosystem they emerge, you realize that that was a good decision. So if somebody from a reason perspective asks me if I would put a token or not, I would say no, because you don't need internal coin and limiting transactions to it. Actually, I think that Satoshi would be against that one as well, because Bitcoin as a currency token is good when it has a kind of competition, open competition with fiat and other currencies, right? If it becomes like a single dominant currency that takes everything out, the gold and everything, it doesn't make sense. Currency and the value is measured in competition, and it's improved as an instrument, right? It's an instrument. And same, I think, for the blockchain startups. Limiting transactions to a single coin and serving as a medium of exchange, it will not work efficiently, because imagine like, I don't know, imagine like every time you go to a supermarket and there's like different symbols of prices and you have to scan them up to understand the instant value of the deal. That does not make sense. I mean, pricing and the value and medium of exchange are an instruments that we use every day. And I believe, as a kind of right libertarian, I believe that
Sorry?
no, I was saying that, yeah, just limiting people to transact and exchange on a single coin that is used by your system, I think it's wrong. One, from a philosophical perspective, but it's wrong from the economical perspective as well, because you don't have a monetary policy, you don't control the pricing of the inventory, and people not gonna adopt or change the value formation on a small ecosystem level. Yeah, that is wrong. Imagine, yeah.
Okay, for someone who wants to learn more about blockchain, Bitcoin, the whole distributed ecosystem that has been built, at least since 2015, I assume. I think the white paper for Bitcoin was 2009? Eight. So ever since 2008, that the distributed ecosystem has been changing a lot. So if someone who's getting out of school or is still working and wondering about building something on the blockchain area, blockchain industry, where would you advise them to start reading, learning? Which kind of tools and resources would you direct them to?
I'll always just start from the genesis. I mean, Bitcoin. If you don't understand how Bitcoin works, and if you can't understand on those 8 pages the genius of the entire system, then you don't need to read the rest of it.
So first of all, the white paper for Bitcoin?
Yeah, it should be white paper for Bitcoin.
So, and just for so everybody knows that this link or whatever we can find it will be here in the show notes. So don't worry. So white paper for Bitcoin. What else? What else would you advise anyone to start reading? Any blog, any podcast, YouTube, whatever, book?
I love it. It's like my own view that I love it from the economical perspective. So I always look at Bitcoin, etc., in the prism of theory of money and how it's what it mimics from the gold standard, or like using this commodity stuff. I mean, I look from that perspective. So I love like reading as a fun. I mean, fun, yeah. So some different money theories, how it got, and in
any book,
economics.
any book that you would recommend in that area?
I mean, really nice book. I think it's a bit hard. It's not finished, but I really love the book, the nationalization of money.
Nationalization of money.
Denationalization of money.
Okay.
Friedrich Hayek. Basically, it's not a book. It's like more of a questions he asks. If we had like free private money and how it could be used and how we're gonna sell. It's like a really radical visionary thing. And by looking all those commodity tokens, by looking Bitcoin and everything, you see some parallels with it. And there's no answers given. So to say, it's not something you read and you got the answers, but it's a good thing to make comparisons and have your own understanding of where we go.
And what drives you in terms of, because I assume that as a Georgian kid that went to the Ukrainian government, what drives you to create an auctioning system for cars? Is there a bigger vision behind? Is there any underlying subject inside of you that wants to follow this theory?
Yeah, there's like several steps. First of all, I'm driven by the idea that I hate when blockchains and everything like startups start with the scale of a Milky Way galaxy, right? I really want to do something that is use case and like narrowed down and shows the value creation of using this technology at a larger scale and scale up from there. Plus, I'm really driven into, I always like this kind of self-sustainable ecosystems, and I really love the transitioning from something that might be even like super centralized, and how you platformize it and make it like like your physics law of entropy, right? It all starts in a central point, and then you have to decentralize, and it goes away. That I think that's what every startup should strive for. I think that's what every blockchain based or any industry will be at some point. We will have the complete decentralization and different governance models, and that's what drives me. Cars is a good point to start and showcase, and itself the protocol can be used for wider use on other asset types and service and market making protocol among different auctioning assets.
This might sound like a weird question, but why is, in your opinion, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to be only yours, but why is decentralization important, and why should it be a big deal?
Because it's not, it is big deal in terms that I've seen how hard it is decentralized architectures or decision making processes or the hierarchical institutions are, it's really hard to change, and you can't really transform it and make it better and make like it serves a huge barrier in terms of especially the new technologies and adoption and improvement in human life. And decentralization is one of the options that gives you more flexibility and gives you free choice. You can always fork, you can always evolve, you can always have your
You can always fork.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, protocol or something.
What's a fork?
Copy paste and launch your own.
So, okay, just in case someone doesn't understand, like me, for example, a fork is when a blockchain copy pastes itself.
Yeah, like take a Bitcoin and launch it on your, it's an open source code, right? Launch it on your web computer. Do whatever, like Bitcoin Cash, right? We have a Bitcoin Dark or Bitcoin, etc.
It's a fork, but what's the difference in theory?
Nothing. It's just somebody does not agree with the Bitcoin, how it's developing, and they just use.
But do people keep adding stuff onto the Bitcoin code?
No, it's a separate one.
No. What I'm saying is okay. Is it's open source, but is it just for a matter of studying it, or can you add stuff onto the code?
Of course, you can add like customize based on your preference and your vision.
And each time you add something, it's a different blockchain, or is it still on the Bitcoin?
It's a different blockchain. It's a different blockchain.
So in theory, you and me can get onto the Bitcoin platform, change a few lines of code, and create
our own Bitcoin.
Lasha.
Yeah, we can call anything.
Lasha blockchain. Is that it?
Yeah, completely.
And then
nobody stops you from doing it. It's then becomes the question of like how many people do really share your vision, how many people do believe in what you did, and you can grab the community around it. And every
sorry. Sorry, but what? Okay, let me understand this on a more visionary perspective. What's the vision? If how can you build a different vision for a Bitcoin or for a current cryptocurrency? Is there a vision behind what's in theory?
I mean, yeah, currently it's the difference of vision of how it should scale, right? So we got technical problem of scaling, and something that increasing block is a better solution. Something Lightning Network is not the solution. It will bring more centralization. So there's a difference of opinions, right? So for at this case, it is a completely technical based differences. We might have the governance based differences as well. We might have some future use case differences, or I don't know. And based on that, people will always form into different communities.
We have a question from the audience, or from someone that knew that I was going to interview you. How do you unwind?
Unwind? What do you mean?
Basically, how do you, when you get home and you don't want to think about work, what do you do just to?
What I do, I don't know. It's like lately my life and work is so much mixed, so I don't quite have a difference between I'm working time or I'm not working time. Actually, I enjoy working from home more because
Really?
I can concentrate and I'm more effective. So
What's your main goal when you're working? Are you coding? Are you business developing? Or what are you doing usually? Are you doing a mixture of both?
Yep, I don't know. I'm doing. I love actually I love graphic designing stuff.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know, some presentations doing on my website, updating some stuff, or just putting up some banners around.
Interesting. Okay,
It calms me down.
let's go into a simple fire round. A fire round is I'll ask you a simple set of questions, and you have 1 minute to answer them.
Okay.
Okay. What's your favorite tool / the tool you wouldn't be able to live without?
Tool.
It can be an iPhone, an app,
Okay, internet for sure.
internet.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any specific app that you use?
I mean, I could live without that, and I've lived a long, not long, but I don't know how long, like 12 years without it.
No, what I'm asking. Tell me something you've changed your opinion about in the last 6 months.
Oh, a lot.
The main thing.
I always try to stay open minded and try to adapt to whatever, even about my startup and how we position or how we should approach the market. I've changed everything for the last 3 months.
Okay, but what's the main thing that you believed 6 months ago that you no longer believe, or the other way around, that you did not believe 6 months ago and you now deep inside believe in it?
Okay, I never saw 6 months ago that Bitcoin would go to 20K. I saw like that would be like, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years time, something like that.
What's the value right now? It's 7,000.
It's 8 now, yeah, back to that. But it was like, I always believed in Bitcoin, but I would never, it was like not completely sure that it could cross that mark. And I was like, okay, 100,000 Bitcoin. I was like, yeah, maybe, kind of, yeah, maybe when I'm old and like the world is different place and my grandsons will remember that. But now I believe that it can happen pretty quickly. And that's a bit of it.
So what's the next thing you think that Bitcoin will go through? What's the next mark?
I don't know, like 50.
50,000? 1,500?
No, 100. I mean, 50,000, 100,000. Yeah, it will.
What's the book you've given out the most?
The book? I know there are many books, but
The
mostly
one.
economical ones.
What's the main book?
I would say The Constitution and Freedom.
Okay, very interesting.
Or Liberty, it's called. I don't remember. I read it like.
We'll link it up in the show notes. Okay, last question. If you started today from scratch, where would you focus?
From scratch, my life, or
if you were living college right now.
College. Oh my god. I really needed to focus in college, actually. I was not the guy. I was not the guy that really kind of
Okay,
understood.
let's put it this way. If you're finishing your studies,
Yeah. I will not change it actually. I don't think that I would go back and focus. Sometimes I'll sometimes when I did not focus, I happen to encounter things in life that brought me more positive changes that I focused on. It's like I don't know. So I really love like this randomized experiences and randomized events and making contrasts in life and decisions. And sometimes it comes out of focus.
Okay, then let's put that question another way. If you were starting today from scratch, what would be your first steps? Would it be go through serendipity and just see how the randomization of the world would take you?
Yeah.
So basically, my understanding is that you would put yourself through as many randomizable opportunities as possible. Is that it?
Of course. That's what life is about, no?
Okay, as a last question, and by the way, thank you very much for being here. What was the best advice you've ever gotten?
Yeah, that was one. And that was one advice because I was pretty young. I had a kind of project pulled out. That was like one of my first working experiences, and this project completely failed not because of me. I mean, there were like political issues. There were like I don't know many things, and it didn't work out, so to say. And then I got that advice. It was not an advice. It was a kind of silly remark, but I still remember that this guy tells me that, okay, what was the reason why it's called? And I started like it was a political one. Okay, they didn't, the investment didn't came, and this guy says, okay, whatever it is, that was your fault in a way. Some part of it was your fault. And yeah, I don't know. I still remember that.
And that's an advice?
It's an advice in a way that everything we're kind of used to blaming everything from externalities and don't see and estimate what impact can we have to this stuff, you know. I looked at it this way. So for me, it's like, wow, man, yeah, I had a huge impact. I could have somewhere that it made it if I was a bit quicker, and I remember that one.
Well, guys, it was a very weird way of putting it advice, but it's something that everybody should know and understand, that all of us have an hand in everything that we're in. So we should start looking more inside other than just blaming outside characteristics and just start and do, right?
Yeah, and just to understand that we could have a huge impact on the things that we then conceive as if we like it due to externalities, or we were like playing a small role. Actually, no, we can have an impact on a huge scale, each of us. That's the case.
Well, this was a very valuable interview. Thank you very much, Lasha, for being here in the Power News Show. And guys, if the people at home want to get in touch with you, how can they do it?
I'm a social network guy. You can reach me on Twitter, Facebook.
What's your Twitter handle?
It's at Lasha Antadze.
Okay, we'll put it on the show notes. Lasha, Lasha Antadze.
Yeah.
Antadze or Z-E.
Yeah.
Okay, you can find him on Twitter at Lasha Antadze. Thank you very much for being here, man.
Thank you.
It was a great pleasure to have you here in the Power News Show.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to share my crooked ideas.
Okay, thank you very much.
Woo! Yeah, I had a great time with this conversation. I hope you had one too. It's with great satisfaction that I know that the Power News Show is growing. Please hit us up on pioneershow.com. Hit me up on Twitter and Instagram. I'm always there. Any information that you might have missed will be all linked in the show notes. You can just probably, depending on the app that you have, just swipe right or left, and you can have all the important notes and links and everything that was talked about during the interview. If you enjoyed the conversation, show the love. Once again, it was really a great pleasure to have you over there. Have a great time. And as always, talk to you later.